Sri Lanka, a tiny island nation in Indian Ocean, always tried to hedge its bet by playing India and China differently. A nation whose economy totally depends on tourism and aid. But after Easter bombing and COVID-19 pandemic, its economical stability shattered completely. So that's why Sri Lankan government declared a state of emergency in the country on 1st April 2022. Not only its economy is dying, but their political stability is also crashing down on the pile of Sri Lankan government's garbage policy making. The full-fledged political crisis is happening due to the government's failure to provide basic amenities to its general population. Amenities like food and energy. The food and energy crisis in Sri Lanka is very severe. The former Sri Lankan minister already mentioned that the economic crisis in Sri Lanka is reaching tipping point that could lead to collapse of agriculture, medical services and industrial production. But I am afraid to say that the country has already failed its population. The food price has already reached at unbearable level. The minimum price of a kilo of rice in general market has now exceeded 200 to 240 rupees per kilo. The price of milk powder are as high as 790 rupees for only 400 grams. The loaf of bread is also at higher side. There is no sign of relief for Sri Lankan population. The prices are expected to heat up further and rise by 50% in coming days. The Sri Lankan oil prices are also hitting the high. The jump in oil prices has already hit 200%. The diesel was gone for a day from a country like Sri Lanka. Then India sent 40,000 million tons of diesel to Sri Lanka. Additionally, India sent 30,000 million tons of petrol to float the Sri Lankan transportation and its economy. So situation in Sri Lanka has already become very, very severe and unbearable. And these are all happening because of Sri Lankan government's wrong policy making, lack of political will, red tapeism and Gotabaya government's corruption-ridden decisions. The people are now on road to show their anger against government. The Sri Lankan population now raising slogan of Go Gota Go. That means Sri Lankan population do not want any Gotabaya family member to run government anymore. The Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, the most powerful political figure of Sri Lanka, has already resigned. Now people are demanding Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign from presidential post. The protest against Sri Lankan government has turned very ugly. The protesters destroyed public property. They set cabinet minister's house in fire. After violent protest, the Sri Lankan government found an excuse to douse the fire by firing protesters at sight. Due to that, 8 protesters were killed cold-blooded by Sri Lankan army. Now Sri Lankan government has ordered army to mitigate this fluid situation by shooting protesters at sight. The situation in Sri Lanka has reached the United Nations Human Rights Commission. The United Nations Human Rights Commission chief Michael Bachelet condemned the escalation violence in Sri Lanka. She urged Sri Lankan authorities to prevent further unrest due to the violence. She also urged for meaningful dialogue to address the grievances of population. Indian government is also closely watching Sri Lankan situation. Because due to the economical and the political crisis, Sri Lankan population is fleeing Sri Lanka for their livelihood. Already some have reached Indian state of Tamil Nadu. So that's why India is giving importance to Sri Lankan population grievances over Sri Lankan government's grievances. The Sri Lanka has already defaulted $51 billion of loans. Their cabinet has already resigned. Sri Lankan opposition has already presented no confidence motion against present government. So situation is out of hand. And they are out of hand because they were very wrong in making their policy to run their country. And after Indian government's 3.5 billion loan, they also failed to recover their economy. Hence, the Sri Lanka need the bailout package from International Monetary Fund. And they need it very, very urgently and desperately they need it. And they need India as their guarantor on their side. The question is how Sri Lanka get here. I have already discussed that. But I would like to tell you again because it is very important. We all know that the Sri Lanka is middle income country. In recent times, Sri Lanka has failed to attract foreign direct investment or diversify or improve its export revenue. It has rather sustained its growth through international sovereign bonds and borrowing from other countries, often at the highest interest rate and short payback periods. Overall, this contributed to external debt of $35 billion by 2021. In this context, China also gradually became one of the top loan providers for the island nations. However, loan payment system worsened in recent years due to COVID-19 pandemic's impact on tourism, supply chain, and degradation in remittances, and also the arbitrary decision to move to organic farming. And this contributed to inflation and the reduction in country's foreign reserve. Thus, depleting foreign reserves has impacted food, fuel, and the other necessary imports. That makes the matter very worse. The Sri Lanka sovereign bonds will also be maturity every year till 2030. So Sri Lanka can now no way out of this political and economical crisis soon, at least not without the help of India and IMF. This all happened due to the divisive balance game that Sri Lanka played to extract more and more profit from India and China. Sri Lanka was reaping maximum concession from both. As a result, the Rajapaksa government at first belittled India's interest and had grown notoriously close to China. In 2021 alone, the Sri Lanka unilaterally cancelled its East Container Terminal project with India and Japan. They offered a few energy products to Chinese firms in the Jaffna Peninsula and also passed the Colombo Port City Economic Commercial Bill. These appeasements ushered in several Chinese incentives in terms of currency swaps, foreign currency term financing facility, grants and fresh loans. However, the Sri Lankan government disagreed to pay for inferior quality Chinese fertilizer. Then Sri Lanka began to play the India card against China. India also saw this as an opportunity to assert its influence in the island nations. India also encashed this moment by signing Trincomalee tanker deal. India also offered credit lines and the currency swap worth $2.4 billion with additional assistance of $1.5 billion. India is also offering a free floating dock facility and Dornier reconnaissance aircraft to Sri Lanka along with training team. So India is anyway trying to help Sri Lanka to regain its lost pride. But the China on the other hand looting Sri Lanka's valuable asset like Hambantota port. So in my view, the Sri Lanka have to be honest with its population and its trusted allies. They cannot take their asset for granted. And simply, Sri Lanka cannot shoot their own citizen. Shooting won't solve economical crisis. Maybe it will going to solve or resolve the political crisis for some times. But the country will turn into either Syria, Libya or Somalia. So that is up to the Sri Lankan government what they want to make of their country. So it is up to the Sri Lankan government that how they will going to reform their country with the help of India and the IMF. Now we have reached our first question. The first question is, which is the first Indian company to cross USD 100 billion annual revenue? The first option is Adani Enterprise. Second option is Reliance Enterprise. Third option is Tata Enterprise. Fourth option is Future Enterprise. Second question is, by selling 3.5% stake in LIC, what is the total amount to be raised by the government? First option is 64,000 crore rupees. Second option is 45,000 crore rupees. Third option is 36,000 crore rupees. Fourth option is 21,000 crore rupees. That is the end of the topic. If any one of you have any question regarding this topic or any other topic I have already discussed, then you can contact me through my email address, which is tuhin.power.academy@gmail.com. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention and thank you for the subscriptions.